Welcome to Truth, Money, and Freedom. Today is Sunday, August 4th, 2019. I have a special treat for all of you listening in tonight. Tonight with me I have American Man 1967, I Am Vessel, and Watchful Warrior tonight to do a roundtable discussion on several topics. So I'd like to welcome each and every one of you for joining. Thank you very much for coming in.
Thank you.
Okay, and I'll tell
Thanks
you
for
what.
having me.
Oh, you bet. It's actually I'm honored. I hate doing podcasts by myself, so it always makes me real happy when I have others joining in. I have a picture here of some of the shooting stuff, but I thought before we get into that, let me cover a little bit of the money side real quick, and it'll only take a minute or two. As everyone knows here, the Fed cut rates on Wednesday, literally just 4 days ago, and
Wow.
the Fed rate is now at 2.14%. But if anyone was watching, the bonds fell precipitously. All the U.S. Treasury yields fell. The yields actually are amazing. The 30-year yield is at 2.39%, which is exactly what the Fed funds rate was literally 4 days ago. So the 30-year is chasing the overnight rate for the Fed funds. If you guys have ever watched a yield curve inversion, in real time, this is actually kind of fun to watch. You can see it on the screen here, but I'll tell you this entertainment is not over, and it's
Mm.
getting very interesting. And I'm keeping a good eye on it. I don't want to focus on it in the podcast tonight, but I just wanted to make you guys aware that we are watching this, and that the interest rates going down is going to continue for the rest of the year. Remember now, I told you guys we were getting a 25 basis point cut, anywhere between 25 and a 25 basis and 75 basis point cut between July and September. So now I'm predicting another 25 point basis cut in September, possibly October. So that's my guess for you guys right now. And then, if you don't mind, I'm going to switch tracks here, and I want to talk about chemtrails a little bit. And I know that you guys are kind of well versed in that. And my understanding is that basically since July 4th, there was supposed to be no more chemtrails, and
Right.
that turned out not to be the case. We're still getting them here in Southwest Missouri. I'm near Springfield, Missouri, but what I have found out is they're only doing them when it's really cloudy out. And the only way you know is when there's a break in the clouds. You see all that nasty crap, up in the sky above where the clouds. When there's a break in the clouds. So they're still doing it, but apparently only on cloudy days. Anyone else have any observations or thoughts?
I was actually wondering the same because I haven't seen many recently, which kind of scared me because I don't believe the end's coming to it. I just think they're trying to cover it up better.
Yeah, it could be. In fact, I had a commenter, David, comment on one of my videos that it's pretty much in about a 6 state area where they're using solar weather balloons, and they're really high up there. They're about 8-9 miles up, and that's where they're spraying. So maybe they don't want to fly in that area right now while they're doing that weather balloon experiment, those solar weather balloons that are supposed to stay up long term, solar power or something, keeping the air hot in the balloon or something. I don't know. Um,
Interesting.
so that may be part of it. And I'd like to ask American Man, since you are in California, have you noticed much in the way of chemtrails in the last month?
Oh yeah, they haven't slowed down here at all, guys. I mean, especially this July and now into August, they're doing a lot of spraying here in my area, specifically in the high desert of Southern California. And temperatures here are unusually lower than normal, what they should be at least 100 and above. They've been below that, and it's been actually abnormally cool here for this time of year.
Same here, actually, I think. TC?
Yeah, I'd say especially in the evenings. We're
Yeah.
definitely cooler in the evenings than I remember us being in the summer, except for maybe I'm going to say the summer of, I think it was either 2011 or 2013, where we were regularly touching 50 degrees every night in July. It wasn't
Yeah.
2012 because that was that was a different summer. That was a really hot summer. So
Right.
it's either the one right before or the right after, the year before or the year after. We had something similar to this, very cool evenings. We're still having hot, humid weather. Watchful Warrior, would you mind chiming in? Have you seen anything in the way of chemtrails in your region, your neck of the woods?
Tim, no, I haven't. They generally do not spray around here where I'm at.
Oh,
Um,
you're lucky.
so
Wow.
so around here, there's really no chemtrail, so I have nothing to compare and contrast against. But I will be going up to Atlanta in a few days, and I'm gonna eyeball because they spray heavy there.
Hmm.
Usually the entire sky is like a checkerboard there,
Yep.
and I'll keep an eye out and I'll report back to you guys on that. But
That,
no,
Wow.
nothing here.
okay,
You're
great.
blessed.
Yep, you are. That's wonderful to hear.
Yep.
I wanted to say something on a personal experience. On Thursday morning, we were clouded out, and my wife and I went to Joplin, the Joplin area. That's in Missouri here. She had to have some eye surgery. And so I went out to the car quite a bit, and it was very cloudy and just spitting, just a little bit of rain here and there. But whenever there were breaks in the clouds, I meant the spraying was just incredible, and it looked a lot like this picture right here that I'm circling with my mouse. And that's what it looked like as soon as the clouds broke. But I will tell you, on yesterday morning, I was coughing up a lot of crap, and I had that metallic taste in my sinuses and in my mouth. Saturday morning. So I mean that's when they spray real heavy down here. That's usually the symptom that I have from that. I'm coughing up a lot of junk and this metallic-y taste kind of thing going on. So that's if anyone's wondering what the symptoms are when you get sprayed hardcore. Um, but it's usually 2 or 3 days after they spray. It's not immediately when they spray. It's a day or 2 or 3 later. But
Right.
okay, but okay, and Watchful Warrior, what area of the country are you in again, buddy?
I'm in Macon, Georgia,
Georgia.
middle Georgia.
Okay, gotcha. Thank you, buddy. All right. But at any rate, that's our at least from Vessel is in Missouri like I am, but he's closer to Kansas City, so he does have a different experience than I do down here in Southwest Missouri. But at any rate, that's kind of our thing on that. And now, the main meat of the evening, we're going to talk about the shootings. I
Yes.
think all of us have a lot of commentary on this. First off, um, I'm not just saying that my prayers go out to the victims and their families. I'm not just saying it, I really mean it.
Right.
I've been praying pretty
Yes.
hard. This is awful, absolutely
Yeah.
awful. And as American Man said right before we started recording here, this is 3 mass shootings in a week,
Right.
and it's getting hot and heavy, gang, isn't it?
Yes. It really is. This is something that has never happened before in the history of our country. And according to my research, public mass shootings has started back as far as 1966 in modern times. But according to a book that I've been reading called The New World Order, this actually first took place back as far as 1886. So they've been doing this for a while. And when I say they, I'm referring to those who are in the deep state. And a lot of people here who are with me making this podcast today know who I'm referring to.
Indeed. Yeah, we're talking about bankers, captains of industry, politicians, and
Yes,
those within in the deep state now also includes elements of the FBI and CIA.
correct. And let's not forget the military industrial complex.
Yep, indeed. Okay, well, I'll tell you what. With okay, we can take these shootings one at a time. I don't have a lot of data on them. I think American Man has looked into this more than the rest of us have. I mean, I'm just waiting. Honest to God, guys, I'm just waiting for the other shoe to drop, and so is Watchful Warrior. We see legislation coming out of this,
Oh,
and
definitely.
and
Yeah, absolutely.
and the bad part about that is that they're on vacation right now. So
Yes.
I brought up an example earlier, and that's the Federal Reserve Act of 1913 was done by 6 senators and the President of the United States. We pay taxes today because of the decision of 6 senators and a president.
Right.
So they have the ability to, when everyone's on vacation, commit, laws, force them on the people of the United States when there is not consensus with the larger legislative body. And so that's what I'm worried about right now. But that doesn't take away from the horror of these tragedies. But once again, the gun did not kill these people. The person holding the gun did.
Right. And that's something that I try to hit home in all my videos that I make talking about public mass shootings. And I want to apologize. I didn't mean to cut anybody off here, so I'm not trying to take the lead. If anybody else would like to speak before I am, go ahead, please. If not, there's some things I would like to add to that.
No, you go ahead and go for it, American man.
Thank you, TC. Guys, we have to use critical but common sense here. And this is what I'm trying to tell America. All right? There are more people that die due to, and please don't be offended, TC, I know that you smoke, tobacco-related deaths in this country every year in America adds up to over 480,000 deaths. And then we have alcohol. Alcohol deaths that are related to alcohol abuse or alcohol consumption are 88,000 a year. Okay. And so we have more people dying due to these substances versus guns. And most of these shootings are a lone stranger or lone actor, supposedly according to mainstream information. And they always seem to be using the same type of weapon. They call it a long rifle, or they refer it to as an assault weapon. Now, can anybody in this roundtable please explain to me how a gun can stand up on its own power and assault you? Can anybody?
No, I can't.
All right. So what it takes is a human being to pick up this tool that's referred to as a weapon that's never been used by anybody in our military. And it's not a military weapon. They refer to as a military style weapon. And TC, you can explain to us better than I can because of your history with guns, why they refer to that. What's the difference between one of these long rifles versus somebody going into a gun store and purchasing a revolver?
You bet. In fact, I may have Watchful Warrior chime in on this too, but an assault rifle, it's not supposed to be called an assault rifle. It is nothing but a semi-automatic rifle with what they call basically accessory rails, accoutrements for basically adding accessories such as laser, scope, flashlight, accessories like that, which make it look much more like a military version of the gun. However, there is a massive difference. The military version of an AR-15 or an AR-10 or an M16 or an AK-47 is fully automatic.
Right.
So we as civilians are not allowed to have those unless under special licensing and circumstance. And believe me, they keep a good eye on that. So never have one of these shootings actually occurred that has happened with a fully automatic weapon. Watchful Warrior, do you want to come in on this?
Thanks, Tim. I'm a professional Marine. And even in the Marine Corps, we do not refer to our weapons as assault rifles. That's ridiculous.
It's just your weapon,
we
right?
Call them, it's we said, give me your carbine, give me your pistol. Sometimes we refer to it by manufacturer. Give me your Colt, right,
Mm-hmm.
which is usually the M4,
Mm-hmm.
or we say, give me your Beretta, which is usually the pistol,
Mm-hmm.
right? We don't call them assault rifles. That's a misnomer and a fallacy. And one other thing I'd like to say is that, in effect, all weapons are derived from the military. If you go back to the 1800s, the lever action rifles were initially made for the government. Okay, now those would not be considered military weapons, but they were at their time. So
Right.
all of these guns, shotguns, they all come and they stem from the military. So again, this is phraseology that the left is putting out there, and the people who are running the show, they're doing a mind psych on you, making you think that these are military styled weapons. Ooh, right? No, they might look like them, but they certainly don't function like. There's a big difference there. Do you know?
Right.
Well, may I interject?
Go for it, American man.
First of all, my friend Watchful Warrior, I apologize. I was not aware that you were a Marine. Hoorah. And second of all, can anybody explain to me exactly what an assault rifle looks like?
Yeah, an assault rifle basically looks like a military style rifle with rails on it to put accessories on the gun, on the
Right.
actual rifle. I will bring up an image of an AR-15 real quick.
Okay.
I can explain a little bit from a technical
Sure.
perspective on that,
Please do.
American and Tim. Well, throughout warfare, the primary shoulder-fired weapon of the soldiers were referred to as a battle rifle. Okay, this is going back many, many wars, hundreds of years. But we can go back just to about World War II. Okay, so
Okay.
World War II, everybody on the American side were using primarily M1 Garands was the weapon of choice, and they
Right.
shot a 30-06 caliber weapon. Okay, so what had happened between World War II and what we know today is Vietnam, is they introduced the air cartridge. The Germans were the first to do this in World War II when they introduced their machine gun, which was intermediate cartridge. It was smaller cartridge than a battle rifle, but not as small as a submachine gun round. Which a submachine gun round basically shoots a pistol round, but through a longer barrel, which gives it higher velocity. Right.
Mhm.
So your quote unquote assault rifle today are things like a 5.56, which is basically a intermediate. They considered an intermediate cartridge round, right? And also your 7.62 by 39, which is what an AK-47 shoots, which is basically a turned down truncated version of the 7.62 by 54R, which was shot out of the trying to think of the name of it. Everybody buys them. They're like real cheap Russian rifles from World War One. One of you guys might know the name of it. They're pretty popular. It escapes me at the moment, but basically, both of those calibers are turned down and truncated versions of their bigger rifle variants, right? Which were considered battle rifles. So, this term assault rifle is a derivative of basically going all the way kind of back to World War II to the Germans when they introduced the Sturmgewehr. It's the Sturmgewehr 44, or quote unquote assault rifle. But really, and the thing about it is that this is how it also developed. Battle rifles were very large, the calibers were very large, and the weapons are heavy, and so is the ammunition. And when you're assaulting with somebody with like a Garand that has an 8-round clip in it, you're not going to do much assaulting before you run out of ammo. So they need to figure out a way that they could actually carry and basically pump out of the weapon more ammunition. So when you're advancing on a target, you can put down, quote unquote, a lead shield. Okay. But that's really primarily what it was for, right? Was to put down enough firepower to keep the enemy's head down so you could advance on a position. Right. Between that and machine guns, the Germans had the, MG34 and the MG44. And those were the most feared machine gun of in most modern day history, anybody would claim. They're the ones who invented the machine gun tactics and things. But this notion today of quote unquote assault rifles, it's phony baloney, right? Is what it is.
All blown out of proportion.
It all blown, and they're putting labels on these guns because they quote unquote look scary, right? Well, they're not really that scary at all.
Yep.
It's the crazy man behind it, with the crazy finger trigger. That's the crazy part of this.
Well, that's just the point. My next point, should I say, rather, why should the many be punished and not trusted for something that the few are doing wrong? For example, and I know this sounds very elementary to use as an example, but it would seem that a lot of Americans are very easily deceived at current times here in 2019, if one person should take a car and either intently or unintentionally run somebody over and kill them, and this becomes like it happens, once or twice every couple of years, does that mean all Americans should use the right to own a vehicle or have a driver's license to be able to operate a motor vehicle?
No, that you see, that's it. It's all about taking away guns or restricting the ability of Americans to acquire guns.
Right.
That's
Yeah,
what
they
this
don't
is
want
all.
to take away your vehicle; they'll never make money.
That's correct.
Exactly. But see, there's a point behind taking our guns. I remember reading that now I know that TC knows the answer to this. It was either the guy that was the leader of the Japanese military or the Japanese emperor who said the reason why they did not try to come over here into America and invade us was because behind every blade of grass there was a gun.
Yeah, I do believe that was actually the Japanese ambassador during World War II.
Thank you. I appreciate you fact checking me on that. So my point is this: we're the last stand, in my opinion, of freedom against the tyranny that is taking control of our government through the form of the United Nations being the New World Order, the Illuminati, the Freemason, the sun devil worshiping people that are in control, the richest families in the world. They've got our government in their back pockets.
Yes, they do.
Pretty much, guys. To give up your right to bear arms, you're going to give up all your other rights as well.
Yep, they'll
Very
take
good,
everything
yes.
right after that. I believe that too. And Watchful Warrior has served in the U.S. Marines. What's your take on all this stuff going on with
What about
legislation?
the
I
red
mean,
flag laws?
Yep.
Well, you know what? Here's the thing, ladies and gentlemen, is that it's your God-given right to self-defense.
That's
It
right.
doesn't stem from the Constitution. It comes from God.
Amen.
You have your right to defense against anyone at any time, at any place. And that is my feeling, is that no one's going to take it away. I don't care what laws you pass. It matters not to me, because you will not remove that right from me. And that's just the bottom line. It
Right.
doesn't come from you or your laws. It comes from God, and God granted that to me, and I'm going to maintain the covenant and keep it. And that's it.
Okay.
Amen.
Gotcha. And I believe I'm right there with you.
So am I.
So basically, this is what I expect to happen, guys. Congress is on vacation, as you guys know. They're on their summer break. They reconvene in September. I forget the date. But I suspect there will be some extremely hardcore legislation to enact new gun laws immediately when they get back. It'll be the first
yeah.
order of business, and it will
Sure.
be hardcore. And that's what I think is coming. And they're always going for the ARs. They're always going for, these are the guns you see before you right now in the video, folks. These are what quote unquote assault rifles. They are not anything special. They are semi-automatic. They look like they're military weapons, but trust me, they are not. Like I said, there is a big process that you have to go through in order to get a fully automatic weapon. It's a huge process, and there's a lot of money involved, and there's licensing involved. And the average person probably couldn't do it. That's what I'm saying. So none of these three events that we're talking about right now that have happened in the last week, everything from the Garlic Festival to what happened in Texas and Dayton, Ohio,
Right.
none of these involved a fully automatic weapon. It was all semi-automatic, which is legal in the United States of America. Now, currently, what they'll go after next is the large capacity magazines.
Right.
That's what they've been doing, and they've been really working hard. They did this in California, American man. They took away what was
yeah.
it, for like 3 or 4 years in California? You can only get magazines that hold like 6 bullets, I believe.
I think it was 10 and no more. And then the law changed briefly, and then they changed it back. And so this is the funny thing about all these gun control bills that are passing and going to continue to pass throughout the whole.
American man? Okay, I think we lost American man briefly.
The same people that are involved in passing all these gun control bills are not sending military type law enforcement agencies into the gang members' territories, the barrios, and the ghettos, and taking their guns and their stash of drugs away from these gang members. Can anybody answer that question?
Nope.
I know the answer to that
Please.
because they work for them. That's why.
Exactly.
That's the lowest. That's why they don't do it, because they actually work for them. Those are
Exactly.
your street peddlers, street pushers, right?
Right.
So they're not going to mess with those guys because, they're making money off those guys.
Exactly. It's called the war on crime. And that's how our government is making money off of that war. Not only that, but here's the other thing, and this is a very strong point I want to make sure I make in this podcast before we end it. And that is all the law-abiding citizens that willfully will give up their right to bear arms are now becoming soft targets. This will cause the criminal element of this country to run rampant through everybody's lives and create more deaths. Every time somebody is shot in one of these neighborhoods, whether it's in a gang shooting, whether it's 1 to 5 or more people, it never makes mainstream media news because they don't want to talk about guns as far as gang members are concerned. They don't want to bring out the mass violence that is involved in this country through gun violence due to drugs, prostitution, racketeering, and so on and so forth. None of that's important. No, they want to talk about what the law-abiding citizens doing wrong. Shame on you. And by the way, we're going to punish you by taking your rights to defend yourself, your property, and your family and your business.
Well, I'll tell you what. I'm going to add a little bit on to what you just said, American Man, but it's specific to Missouri.
Go ahead.
In Missouri, we have a law on the books. It's actually now been incorporated into the Missouri Constitution that we will not acknowledge any laws that come from the federal government that infringe upon people's right as far as the Second Amendment is concerned. It's actually on the books. It's a done deal. We also have some pending legislation on actually reversing the process and taking away any laws that have actually been created by the federal government that infringe on people's right to bear arms that have been done in the past. Now, this was a video that I put out quite a while ago, maybe in February, maybe March, and I'll have an update hopefully by the end of this month. Apparently there's going to be a meeting in the Springfield area with actually some legislators and some supporters of that bill. And so I will have updates for you guys hopefully by the end of this month on this. But I'm really, really hoping that states literally start taking their rights back. Use the 10th Amendment. You know, any of you, anyone who's listening to this podcast, no matter what state you're in the United States, you have the right to literally take your rights back via the 10th Amendment. If they take away your right to bear arms, you can go right into the 10th Amendment. Start a bill in your state. You know, don't take it. Don't take it lying down anyway. Stand up and fight. Don't let them do it. You know, don't be that guy that just sits back going, oh, whatever's going to happen is going to happen. You know, you might as well try to do something. I meant, this is important. American Man made a really good point earlier. If you take a van and go plow into a crowd of 40 people and kill all 40 people, they are not going to look into taking away people's vans.
That's right.
But it's actually a much more effective weapon for killing people in crowds than a gun will ever be.
Right.
And that's just a fact. But they're not going to take away vans. Planes can be used to kill people too. You know, cars, planes, you know, shoot a hammer. You know, they're not going to go after these things. These are the things they use in Britain now because they've taken away everyone's guns. So they go and kill people. They have mass killings with knives. You're not affecting men's hearts by taking away their firearms.
Right.
And so
They'll still go kill.
That's correct. Those who have the penchant to go and kill other people will still do it in a different fashion. Now, in America, they will snow you. Our legislator will try and snow you and say they can't be as effective at killing mass people if they don't have these guns. And England has showed us that is not the case. So has Japan with sarin gas in the subways. I'm sure everyone here remembers that back in the late 80s, early 90s. I can't remember if it was sarin or mustard, but there was a gas. It killed like 190 people just by releasing a little gas bomb in the subway.
Exactly.
And these are indiscriminate, killings. These people claim to have manifestos, but I don't know. I think these people understand that the more they do this, the more they agitate people in Washington, make them want to do this sort of thing. So it makes you wonder if there's some other agenda involved or attached to their actions. Um,
Right. I mean, again, if I may interject, let's look at the history of our country. Let's go back to the Great Depression, which you guys know a lot about, probably more than I do. Do you remember at that period of time in history ever hearing, or when you studied history, whether it was in school or as an adult, any American grabbing a military style rifle, going out into his neighbor in a public area and just for no reason at all, no apparent reason at all, rhyme or reason, and shooting a bunch of people indiscriminately for no reason at all?
no,
Okay. So this did not take place really until just recently in the last 50 years. That's when this started. And so that only leads me to believe that there's a certain type of people involved in a certain area of our history, and they're doing it for a purpose.
yep.
That purpose is to disarm America.
And another thing I've noted too from these mass killings that we've had in the United States with guns is the most effective they've ever been. They being those who commit these egregious acts is
Yes.
when they go to schools and shoot school children. That is where they get the most traction in Washington D.C. for enacting new gun laws.
Yes.
So uh, I'm not going to say anything more than that, but all I'm saying is I suspect at some point, if they really want gun legislation in a big way, with lots of support across the aisle, there's going to be kids killed. And I'm talking about
Definitely.
youngsters, not college
Yes.
kids.
Right.
So it's a horrible thing to think about. Um, but what is going on? How is this happening, so frequently? Why is it happening so frequently? What have we done, basically as a society or as a culture to, basically receive this kind of treatment from these sick, people? I don't really have an answer for you. I could go into a Christian answer. I could go into a secular answer. But I will tell you one thing is certain, absolutely certain, because it applies to the money system as much as it does to weapons. And that
Right.
is the condition of men's hearts. And basically, for instance, having an honest money system. We have to have honest people running the show, and we just don't have it, for our financial system. Now, for, trying to take down, gun control, I don't think we have very honest people running that show either. BATF, FBI.
Oh yeah.
I may be stepping out of bounds here a little bit by saying that, but I do think that there's some issues there. I think there's some issues with our FBI, and hopefully they can clean that up. But we do have some issues that need to be dealt with, and that really stems to, like I said originally, the condition of men's hearts. And I'm not talking about heart failure. I'm talking about people who are willing to let these kinds of things happen to get the kind of legislation they want passed through the halls of Washington, D.C.
Right.
Watchful Warrior, any more thoughts?
No, I don't really have anything right now, Tim.
Okay. And yeah, this is a horrible subject, and we needed to talk about it. But I want all of you to know we are not giving any time to the shooters at all. We're not
Right.
talking about them. We don't care about them. We're not going to give them their 15 minutes of fame on our podcast or anyone else who will post this podcast. They will not have it from us. And I want to say publicly, and I think I speak for American Man, Vessel and Watchful Warrior, that we deeply feel what the victims and the families have gone through, and we are praying for all of them. This is awful. This is absolutely awful. And what do we have to do to change men's hearts to stop these situations from happening? I don't know. I don't really have the answer. I wish I did. Sometimes we have an answer, sometimes we don't. This is one where I just don't have an answer. Does anyone have any ideas of what we could do to start reversing these things?
I have a suggestion, but I don't know if it's a reversal, to be honest.
That's okay.
It's
Throw it
more
out
of
there.
a stalemate. Well, I mean, I was reviewing these incidents that's been happening, with regard to the latest two shootings. And you have to ask yourself, well, since I'm a concealed carry person, I would have had my concealed carry weapon on me.
Yep.
And since I'm a Marine, I would have more than likely took on those guys with a pistol.
Mm-hmm.
And then I started thinking about that for a minute. I said, you know what? Most people aren't Marines, and most people don't have your quality of firearm. They would be hard-pressed to actually use a pistol against a semi-automatic rifle. Hard-pressed. Even Marines would be hard-pressed to do that. You use a sidearm against a rifle. And then I started thinking, well, is it time that we all start carrying our carbines with us where we go? So we can, be on equal footing with these crazy people who do this stuff. I'm started thinking about that.
Well,
And I want people to think about that because it's serious. Even if you have a concealed carry weapon and somebody has, an AK-47, you're at a significant disadvantage. Significant. So is it time that we really, face reality and say, you know what? Having a concealed weapon is great, but now I need to actually start bringing my, M4 with me and my carbine or whatever to maintain parity with these people.
well, that's a very, very good point. In fact, I'm concealed carry holder too. And I'm in Missouri where open carry is still constitutional. Now, you do get harassed a little bit by police if you open carry because people do call the police and say, "Oh my God, some guy, has a pistol strapped to his waist, or some guy has, an AR-15 strapped to his back." So they will get calls. It does happen, gang. And of
But
course, the police
completely
come
legal.
by. It's completely legal. That's correct. The police can't do anything to you, but they can stop you. And then if you do it, and I knew someone who did carry actually a shotgun with him, and had it strapped to his back, and he stopped doing it because literally like every 20 minutes he was being stopped by a cop. When he's walking through town because so many people called in. And but at the same time, I guess you could. No one knows if he's crazy or not, right? So yeah,
Right.
someone's walking, and we don't generally do that anymore. But I would like to investigate Watchful Warrior's comments here, and actually break it down a little further. If everyone was allowed to conceal carry, then you wouldn't know who was armed,
Right.
and people would be less likely to do these things anyway. I hate to point this out because I said I'm not going to give any love at all to the shooters because they are despicable people. But that guy,
No, but it's a very valid point.
that guy in Walmart, he was wearing ear protection. He didn't want to get hurt. He didn't intend to get killed by the cops. He was protecting his ears. For a shooter who's going to go in, who's going, I'm going to go by death by cop. Yeah, I'm going to take out as many Mexicans as I can, but I'm going to get shot and killed by a cop. They're not going to wear hearing protection. This guy was
Right.
frickin' wearing hearing protection. He didn't expect anyone to pull out a gun, and he was right. There was no one with a concealed. Well, hang on. I shouldn't say there was no one with a concealed carry in Walmart, but I
Excuse
will
me.
say no one stepped forward with their gun on this particular issue.
Well,
And
and that's the point I want to make. You're in Texas, for Christ's sake. I mean, they're supposed to be, the most gun toot, like Toucan Sam, the most rootinest, tootinest,
Yeah.
six pack and
Yep.
pistol shooting. And these guys went in there and nobody returned fire at all.
Yep.
So what's going on with Texas?
That's interesting because that's kind of what my thought was too. Why weren't there more concealed carry? By the way, is statewide in the state of Texas. Now, this guy may have targeted a local Walmart that he knew was going to be filled with undocumented, people, and they were most likely not to have weapons on them. I don't know. I mean, I really haven't looked into this. All I've seen is a picture of this guy walking into a Walmart with an AR-15, and for the love of God, he actually had hearing protection on. I do that every time I shoot, but I'm out there shooting at targets. I'm trying to hit a bullseye on a target. I don't expect to be shot by anybody. He didn't expect to get shot. He knew he wasn't going to be shot. He was protecting his ears. He wants his eardrums for the rest of his life. There's something
Right.
weird going on here, gang, with that particular
Same.
situation.
Well, I mean, and look back, like everybody's been saying, look back on history. Just the recent couple shootings. I hear there was 3 this week, correct?
Yeah,
It
3.
was kind of the same. And I can remember the one, it was right after Nicholas Cruz. There was a shooting. It looked kind of animated in a church. I still have that video and the Nicholas Cruz
Christ
shooting
Church.
was shut off. Yeah, that's it. And the Nicholas Cruz, it seems like all an agenda. Forgive me for speaking mine, but
No.
there's something bigger behind it, and it all goes down the same way, it seems like now.
Yep.
They all have protection, or they're well built. They, they have the ammunition. They have the whole cargo load pulling up. They know what they're doing. They're strategically pursuing something, whether or not it's planned out or not. These aren't military guys. These are kids.
Yep.
And they're acting as if they're in a video game and trained to do this.
Yep. And once again, what used to be important is the motive. And they're saying this guy is so upset about Mexicans crossing the border that he decided to take it upon himself to just start shooting and killing them. And that, to me, honest to God, doesn't make sense, because that's not going to change anything.
No.
So the motive there isn't good enough for the crime, in my opinion. So that's just my opinion. There may be another motive that we're not familiar with, or an agenda that we will never know of.
May I interject here, gentlemen?
Oh, absolutely. Go ahead.
Well, 2 things, 2 points I would like to bring out. First of all, one thing I've been able to pay attention to, and since these last shootings that have taken place, especially since now in 2018, one of my videos on my channel, and I'm not trying to promote my YouTube channel, by the way, I'm just saying this. One of the ladies in the video that I had made stated clearly that she was shot, barely grazed in her right arm, and she was closing the door to her schoolroom. But before she did that, she looked down the hall from the direction the shots were being fired from, and the assailant came up around the stairwell. She said it was a law enforcement officer in full military guard, and he saw her. She looked at him, he looked at her, and he continued to shoot. And then she was hit, struck by the bullet as it grazed her arms. And then she did, of course, out of natural survival mode, pulled the door, shut it, and locked it. But she paid very close attention in that brief moment. And she noticed this man was a military trained or law enforcement officer. And I watched some of the videos from Dayton, Ohio shooting. There was these African-American males that were stating that they saw the actor or shooter in this particular shooting that took place there. And he was dressed like a SWAT team officer. So I'm trying to point something out here. In my opinion, and I want to make sure I stress that to the viewer of this podcast, these people are dressing up like military personnel or SWAT team member. Where does the civilian at large get this type of weaponry and protection? Ear protection, face protection, bulletproof vest, knee pads, elbow pads, military type clothing? I mean, come on. In my opinion, these are mercenaries. And that's just my opinion. That's my first point. My second point would be, and I know you're going to rebuttal on that, TC, and I'm glad to hear whatever you have to say. My second point is, And this last week, these 3 shooters were all white males.
Mm-hmm.
And I am making this claim here and now on your podcast that white men are going to be declared domestic terrorists in the United States.
I think you're right. In fact,
I think we already are.
you know, white male Christian. You know,
Conspiracy theorists,
Yep.
they're putting a lock on all us conspiracy
Oh, yeah.
theorists, by the way.
Oh, definitely.
Yep.
There's nothing to worry about, though, guys.
Oh, I'm not worried.
Yeah. Basically, just in retrospect, I've been pensive about these situations, especially since there's been so many of late. But it just seems to me that there's something bigger going on here, and I'm just wondering if this isn't part of some kind of black op or something. What say you on that, Watchful Warrior? Deep state stuff going on, maybe? Warrior, are you with us? I think we lost Warrior for right now, but
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm here, guys.
okay, gotcha.
Oh, okay.
I was just thinking that there might be something bigger and deeper going on with 3 of these going on in a week. Possibly deep state, kind of stuff going on, black ops stuff going on. Any ideas or comments on that? I mean, we're just entertaining ideas here, gang. We're just having a roundtable discussion. No one here has any inside knowledge. We're just discussing. Go ahead, Watchful.
Well, I had heard for the longest time, since I've been involved in these, checking of facts for many decades now, that time basically will start to double in on itself, and time will speed up, and things will start happening at such a rapid pace that we won't be able to even keep track of it. And I have recalled that, this year has been a lot like that.
Yeah.
Or basically, you could really notice it since President Trump came in.
I agree.
But you can really feel it now. And I do think they're interrelated, interconnected. I don't believe in coincidences. I never have. I've never been a coincidental. So I do think they are interrelated. I think they're connected. I don't know exactly how. I know why. Why is because evil. That's why.
Right.
But that's what I think. That's what I got to say about that. Time is collapsing, and you're seeing things speed up, and evil is behind it, and I don't know how to stop it. All I can say is, defend yourself.
I say so too. If I can speak right after you, Watchful Warrior, thank you for adding that, by the way.
Thank you, my friend.
I
I'm
am
good.
a big proponent of concealed carry. I think pretty much everyone in this group here is.
Yeah.
Now, if you are not, or if, for instance, you're in Europe, you're in Australia, you're listening to this podcast, and you can't do that, well, we understand that too. Let me give you another idea. Learn a martial art.
Oh, yeah.
Learn some kind of self-defense. And by the way, I know that you have a 0% chance if you have no gun and you have no fighting skills, and a man shows up with an AR-15 and he's pointing it at you. If you
Yeah,
have
you're
martial
good.
arts skills, you do have a chance of surviving that. They will teach you skills in martial arts to deal with people with guns. So even though you don't have a gun, even though you don't have a knife and you have no weapon, you still will learn skills to deal with that that'll give you a better chance of survival. So can I offer that to our friends around the world who don't have the privilege we do to be able to conceal carry as we do in many states here in the United States, open carry sometimes. But I want to encourage all my brothers and sisters around the United States to please consider buying a weapon, training, and applying for concealed carry. So if this doesn't happen to you in your lifetime, that is awesome. If it happens in your lifetime, you could make a difference and save lives.
Right.
You can actually make a difference with that one decision that you make. And if everyone was concealed carry holder in Walmart, down in Texas, this I doubt he would have killed very many people at all before he'd had plenty of lead going through him.
Right.
And that's just a fact. I mean, this is just a fact. I live in Missouri, and here's the stories you won't see on the news because I live here. I know this. I'm an IT guy, and my main clientele is law enforcement. Let me tell you what happens here in Missouri since concealed carry. If a convenience store is held up with a guy with a gun, most of the time he is dead. He is killed by the clerk because the clerk
Cool.
is a concealed carry holder. The guy doesn't know it. As soon as he turns his head or does something, the
Bam.
guy gets his gun and literally takes care of the problem.
Yep.
Enough said.
This is what happens in Missouri. Now, I
Right.
had the impression this is what happens in Texas too, but and it could be. This mass shooting was done in a town that had, an awful lot of illegal aliens in it, and illegal aliens are less likely to be carrying guns, is my opinion. It just
Right.
makes sense. But please consider my words on this. If you can buy a gun, train, but don't just buy a gun. If you're just buying a gun, you're not helping. It's not helping solve the problem. Train with that gun, and then when you're competent with that gun, apply for your concealed carry. And then it's real easy to do in Missouri. I suspect it is in most states that allow for it. And our friends around the world who are listening to this podcast, if you can't do that, learn a martial art or some basic self-defense. Learn something.
Yes.
Don't be a victim. Don't allow yourself to be. By the way, you decide whether or not you're, a victim. And I'm
Yeah.
not saying that everyone needs to be a hero here, but there was an awful lot of victims here in the last week in the United States, and this could have been prevented.
Yeah. I have one solution that I would like to offer the
Sure.
listener, if I may, gentlemen. Um, if I understand correctly, and if I'm wrong, I apologize, but I believe just about everybody here in this round table tonight is a believer in God, in the Holy Bible.
Yep, I think so.
And I'm a practicing Christian. Am I perfect? No, I'm not, but I don't want to go down that road. We'll save that for another video. I today made a video on my channel today trying to encourage my subscribers and my viewers. And I read Ephesians 6 verses from 10 through 18, where it talks about in the Bible to put on the full armor of God for protection. And I would advise those who are believers who are listening to this podcast, if you believe in God and his word, that it's okay to pray in the name of Jesus for protection. And I've been doing that since I've been a believer in Christ Jesus. And I've found it to be very helpful. And we can always pray and ask God to help us protect us. And that's the thing that I would offer to the viewer.
Thank you for that. That's actually really, really good advice.
Thank you.
Okay, gang, unless anyone else has anything to add, I thought that we'd probably pretty much close up the podcast. This was a heavy subject tonight, gang. This has been a lot of crap going down in the United States in the last week, and it makes us look bad.
Yeah.
It makes us look bad. And this is not the way it's supposed to be. I'm a concealed carry holder, and Watchful Warrior is a concealed carry holder. And I have never, ever, ever had a reason to draw my gun yet, and I consider myself very fortunate. And I think Watchful Warrior will say the same thing.
Amen, brother. And I've been a concealed carrier since 1990, and I got out of the Marine Corps in 1987. And I tell you what, man, I've been lugging that piece of metal around on my back to protect the rights and freedoms of people for all these many, many, many years. And yet I still have never had the cost to pull it, and I hope I never do. But I don't carry that for me. I carry it for you.
That's right. That's the way I feel too.
I mean, that's the thing. But that's what I got to say about that.
Thank you for your service, brother.
Well, thank you, my friend. I appreciate you.
Yep. So, but at any
I
rate,
appreciate all of you.
I appreciate you too, man. And I'd like to say publicly to any of you listening to this podcast tonight, American Man, Vessel, and Watchful Warrior are all YouTubers, and they're partnered with Truth, Money, and Freedom. At the bottom description of every single video, you can find their channels. please find their channels at the bottom in the description section and subscribe to their channels. We may or may not be on YouTube much longer because it's getting tough, gang. None of us are monetized. None of us are monetized because we know that that brings more attention to us. But we are definitely trying to get messages out. We're trying to get some critical thought out so people can, work with us on finding solutions rather than knee-jerk reactions we find in Washington all the time. But I'd like to say that these are all fine men, and I am honored to be associated with each and every one of them with Truth, Money, and Freedom. We thank you very much for joining us. Thank you, American Man. Thank you, Vessel. And thank you, Warrior, for joining us tonight. You guys all have a good evening. And for all of our listeners,
Thank you.
you may have missed on this podcast, but you haven't missed out on the conversation. Below in the description, there's a link to find Truth, Money, and Freedom on Discord. And as of this podcast, we're including our sister site, Grassroots. And Grassroots is run by Vessel, and it is LE 1978's Discord group. I want you guys to consider joining up over there as well. In these trying times where we don't know if we're going to be shut down for this or that or the other thing, we need to form these partnerships so we have places to go if things go south. And
Right.
so, but you can join us on Discord and converse with us here. As you hear us talking right now, we actually have voice channels where you can come in and talk to us. But thank you once again for listening to this podcast. You guys all have a wonderful evening. May God bless you all.